when it comes to manifestation, the how, we're all obsessed about the how. How are we going to materialize and manifest this thing? And so today, what I want to do is I want to break down an idea of how to fully understand the how to allow for the how to happen versus spending so much time focused on the how that you actually forget the most important part of manifestation. So let's get into it. Now, when it comes to who you are, we know that the ultimate core of your very essence is consciousness, right? So let me use a different. Consciousness. That is all of who you are. But we know that because we're living this human experience, there are other layers of what we call self. Okay. So that can be your conscious mind, right? Then you have your infamous subconscious mind, right? Some people would categorize that or say it could be called, or another level is the unconscious mind. Okay. So we're starting to see different layers of self. Now, what I like to talk about is the other side of consciousness, which is also a very important layer that we must address always when it comes to spirituality. That is the ego. So now we have a better understanding of the layers of the self. Now, consciousness also has various, different layers, or you can say expressions or words that we use, almost like, um, higher self, right? True self. I like to say future self, because that's ultimately the future that we desire for ourselves. And I get into that in the Future Self Frequency book. And so you have all these different kind of expressions of consciousness. We also call consciousness outside of the realm of self. So if you were to look at this whiteboard as the entirety of the whole universe, and you were to say, well, the universe itself is consciousness, which it is. There's an intelligence that is moving things, observing things, orchestrating this whole symphony, so to speak. And you, right, are essentially an expression of that, right? You are an individualized expression of that. You are a unique experience, creator, idea, perspective coming, right, from a different point of view, a unique point of view called you. So you exist in this entirety of all that is. And we all, right, all of us infinitely exist. Okay. Now, when we look at these circles, right, which is expressions of selves, expressions of realities, expressions of worlds, dimensions, what have you, this essentially represents what we often look at as just a sacred geometry image, which is called the flower of life. Okay. When I talk about in the Future Self Frequency, I break down essentially the flower of life as a blueprint to understanding how to really recognize yourself as a multidimensional being, right? A being that is beyond space and time, particularly time. And so we use the information in the Future Self Frequency to really quantum jump into the future self, the ideal self, the true self, the higher self. Okay, the self, the version of yourself that is speaking back to you, trying to give you the clues to get you to where you're supposed to be. Okay, so as we get into these versions of self, as it pertains to the how, okay, the how of manifestation, all right, because we all want to know how, right? We all get really caught up into how I'm going to materialize this. How is this going to work? How does this work? How does this person make it work? We get caught up in that, thinking that the techniques are so important. They go beyond the most essential part, which is the frequency that you're putting out. Okay. And the frequency that you're putting out comes in a multitude of different layers, just like everything else does. Right. So when we think about the how of manifestation, what I want to give you some insight and perspective on is how to look at it differently. Don't look at it so much as the tangible hows. Okay. But more importantly, when it comes to the how of manifestation, when we think about these different layers of self, okay, let's particularly look at the subconscious mind, because that is the one that we may have studied the most about, may have learned the most about, and therefore it can give you a framework of understanding consciousness or the higher self or a higher intelligence. Okay. So the subconscious mind, okay, the subconscious mind is responsible for a lot of things. But as it pertains to understanding the how, gaining perspective on the how of manifestation, I want us to focus on a few things that the subconscious mind does. The subconscious mind focuses on your bodily functions, okay? So your heart rate, right? Your heartbeat, okay? Your breath, you breathing, your cells, all the things that your cells do and all the infinite cells that you have. So we can just focus here. Your bodily functions are governed, managed by the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind essentially is responsible for your habits. We only think about it in terms of your mental habits, okay? And that's fair because that is what we are trying to address and change. But what I want you to understand is, as it relates to the how of manifestation, when it comes to the subconscious mind, we don't wonder how it manages your heartbeat. We don't wonder how it manages your breathing. We don't wonder how it manages your cells, your chemistry, your biology. We don't wonder how, okay? We do not question the subconscious mind when it comes to those things. Remember, your body is by far the most miraculous machine, vessel, vehicle that you have and probably will ever materialize and manifest. Your human body is an expression of your consciousness. All right. This is why everybody's body is different, because everybody's consciousness is different. You know, even with the exception of twins, you know, triplets, you know, they may say, okay, they are identical, but still, you can still figure out the differences between those two. And so what I want you to understand is your body is an expression, essentially the evidence of your ability to materialize and manifest. Okay. Now, remember when I talked about these circles, right? Even when you think about the body and when the sperm cell implants the egg and it begins to multiply, what happens? Okay. One cell becomes two. Okay. Two cells become three. Okay. What does that look like? That is the beginning of the circle, the flower of life expanding. This is another example of the deeper understandings of this sacred geometry symbol, the flower of life. And so to get back to how you materialize and you manifest the things that you desire, you have to start with trusting yourself. Okay. Just like you trust your subconscious mind, which takes care of about 90 to 95% of your mind's capability, and your conscious mind, takes care of about, 5 to 10%. Okay. Your subconscious mind is doing so much, but yet your conscious mind is not sitting there wondering, how is it doing it? Your conscious mind is aware to a degree that your subconscious mind got it. Okay. The only time you may question whether your subconscious mind is managing, how is it managing your heart rate, your breathing, your cells, is if you're maybe in some crazy physical activity, you're running a marathon, you're doing some crazy workout. That's when you may feel like, I can't breathe, right? But the reality is you are breathing perfectly well. Your subconscious mind knows what to do. It is managing how to regulate your heart rate. Okay. You're trying to breathe more to get oxygen through your cells, to your cells. And so your heart rate is going up. And those things are just simply a part of what the subconscious mind does. Now, on the topic of fitness and health, because that is what I like to also do as well, is to be mindful not to let your subconscious completely run the show 100%, because your subconscious is basically a source or a place where your habits are created based on the things that you've experienced. And say, for example, something like working out. If you are training, if you're doing something, a workout that you haven't done before, you're not familiar with, it is pushing the intensities or the limitations of you that you've been exposed to, then it's going to be a little bit chaotic, right? It's going to, again, your breathing is going to be out of control. Your heart rate is going to be just crazy elevated. You're going to feel like crap. Your body is trying to adjust and trying to figure out how to bring equilibrium and balance to you. Now, how the conscious mind comes in those situations is you basically continue to tell yourself, to tell your mind, this is okay. This is what's happening. You intentionally breathe deeply, slowly, to bring more oxygen in, okay? Just because your subconscious mind, again, isn't aware of what you're putting it through. Now, with time, if you are somebody who is constantly into physical fitness and training, your subconscious mind will adjust and will recognize this pattern. So essentially, your conscious mind is meant to direct the subconscious mind. So as it relates to manifestation, you have to recognize that you want to put most of your trust in your higher self. Okay. Now, your conscious mind is not communicating to your consciousness how it is managing your heart, your breathing, your cells. Okay. Because we really don't know how this is all happening. Of course, scientists, things of that nature, you can study how the body works, but it's not something that is intrinsic in the knowledge base of, who you are and how you grow up. Like, you're not just knowing exactly how it works. You just simply recognize that it works and you trust it. You see? So what you want to understand is, just as your conscious mind, this is the part of you that is constantly analyzing and aware of things. This is the part of you that is watching this video right now, that is listening to me speak right now, that is looking at this board, that is coming up with conclusions and analyzing and getting a feel for what it is that you're seeing. The feel is actually coming from the subconscious mind. Whether or not you like me, right? Whether or not you feel like I'm somebody who's nice, whether or not you feel like I know what I'm talking about, right? All those are kind of like intuitive things that's just like in your gut for some reason, or for some reason, I really like this guy, right? I really like what he's showing me, whether or not it's factual or not, right? So your conscious mind, though, is the thing that is meant to direct your subconscious. It's also meant to direct your higher self. Now, as the subconscious mind relates to the higher self is the part of you that deals with the how of manifestation. Okay? This higher self deals with manifestation. Your subconscious mind deals with the body, right? Physiological stuff. Okay? So we have here a perfect example of the importance of faith within yourself, within the different layers of yourself. You do not question your subconscious mind when it comes to your heart rate, your breathing, your healing. You don't question that. When you get sick, you know you're going to get better, right? When you get a cold, you know you're going to get better. You don't question those things. How is this working? How is this working? How is this working? Creating this anxiety about it, which ultimately creates a block. Because the more you worry about the how of something, you're not in the space of just simply allowing it to do its job. It's like, this is your team, okay? Each player of the team has a job. The best teams that win respect, honor, and trusts their teammate to do their job. That's the trick. That's the key to it. So your conscious mind, as being the self of you, right? Your player, you are simply analyzing all aspects of the team. And you recognize, okay, the subconscious mind, this is the job of the subconscious mind. I know that when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to get up, stand, I'm going to go use the bathroom. I'm going to do everything that I need to do. I'm going to eat my food. That food is going to be digested. That food is going to be absorbed. That food is going to provide nutrients for my body to move throughout this physical realm. You trust that the subconscious mind will do its job. Now, but for some reason though, you are not trusting in your higher self, right? Consciousness to do its job in the how of manifestation. Now, that isn't to say that you are not supposed to take action. Okay? You are. And that doesn't mean that the action you take must be something that is clear as far as what it is that you're doing and the results that you're going to get. What it simply is aligning yourself. Okay? You are aligning yourself with grand consciousness, with the entire universe and how it's moving. You see? So your job as consciousness, essentially, you are analyzing, observing. You are trusting your team. When your teammate isn't in alignment with what it is that you desire as consciousness, what you then do, for example, the subconscious mind, okay, what you then do is begin to reprogram, okay? Because the subconscious mind is essentially a collection of all the experiences, all the things you've heard, seen, everything that you have experienced is in your subconscious mind. This is why when you go to sleep, you have these random dreams of things that just don't make sense, but things that you have experienced on some degree and some level. But when it comes to us being awake and conscious awake, then as we move through life, the subconscious mind is also moving us based on those experiences, based on the trauma, based on the limiting beliefs. Your job as the conscious mind is to recognize when the subconscious mind is not leading us in the path, the direction that we want, okay? Which is the path of the future self, your desired future self. So you have to reprogram the subconscious mind. Okay. That is where affirmations, hypnosis, things of that nature comes into play. That is where continuing to educate, to contemplate, to, continue to think about this thing. Every time you are thinking about something and you are thinking about a concept, you are reworking the conversation about a limiting belief system or just any belief system, you are reprogramming the subconscious mind. Every time you're watching a video, every time you're listening to a book, every time you're having a conversation with somebody, you are in fact absorbing that into your subconscious mind. The more you do it in alignment with what you want, the more you are matching the frequency of receiving that, right? The more you are aligning with your future self frequency. You see? So essentially, the Howard manifestation is really not your concern as the conscious mind. Your concern is just pay attention to what's happening in the moment. Pay attention to what it is that you desire and that you are going in that direction. You see? So what this is about is the importance of recognizing that your job, okay, as the conscious mind player is to have faith in your higher self. Your higher self knows everything. Your higher self consciousness is directly connected and one with the universe. The universe we often call infinite intelligence. Okay? Consciousness, universe, infinite intelligence is expressed through higher self. Okay? True self. Because the reality is, you, consciousness, and the universe are one. There is no separation. So when you recognize that, then it's not a matter of trying to figure out and understand how the universe works. Okay? It's simply about having faith that you know the universe works. Just like you have faith that when you wake up, your heart is going to work, right? That when you wake up, your breathing, your lungs are going to work, especially if you're somebody who is taking care of this machine, right? This beautiful machine called the body. So your job is simply to have faith in your higher self on the how. When you do that, that equates to you actually manifesting your fate. You see, your fate as the future self, the desired future self. So when you pick up and read the future self frequency, when you get the My Future Self journal, it'll help all of this make sense and become very clear to you. You see, so I want you to understand all this is saying is that when you have faith in, especially of all things, you must have faith in consciousness, in your higher self, in your future self. There is no way that the future self, your higher self, is leading you down the wrong path. It is impossible. It goes against your true self's best interest, right, to go the wrong route. It doesn't serve that, right? So you must recognize that you have to have faith in it, just like you have faith in your subconscious mind. The issue is we have faith in the subconscious mind. We have faith in the subconscious mind in terms of our heart rate, our breathing, and our bodily functions because we are being led by the ego. We are identifying. Right? You are identifying with the ego. Okay? And what I need you to do is identify with consciousness. When you identify with the ego, you identify with the physical body and you trust it. You trust the physical body. You trust everything physical. This is why people need to see something before they believe it. This is the difficulty of us materializing things. I can speak to that. It's very easy because we're programmed to think this way, that if I have it, then I can be secure and believe it. But it's actually the other way around. So you have to recognize that when you function from a place of consciousness and higher self, then you know the true essence of materialization and manifestation is that you believe it, you feel it, you are it first, and then it expresses itself in this physical realm. You see, the seed comes first before the plant, the fruit. You must plant the seed within yourself. You are the seed. All right. And as you continue to nourish that, then it will blossom into a physical fruit. You see? So your job here, your mission here is to just simply think about this concept. So that way you understand that you are allowing yourself to simply trust in the subconscious mind's ability to function and move your body, right? You're doing that. You know, you kind of take for granted you're going to wake up in the morning because you know your body's going to do it. It's been doing it, right? You need to do the same thing with consciousness. You need to do the same thing with your higher self. You know, yes, when you have a thought, when you have a idea, it doesn't mean you do nothing. It doesn't mean you just sit and you say, I'm going to just chill and wait for consciousness to work on the how. Consciousness also works on the how by giving you the ideas, right? The ideas of action, of what to do, of what the things you need to put in motion. You see, because truth be told, you live in a physical body, right? So you must do some action. That's the deal. But the action isn't the sole focus. It isn't the essence of materialization. You having faith in your higher self then leads to the physical action. Okay. And the physical action doesn't always mean that everything is clear. It means you do with what you have. And as you continue on that path of doing what you have and what ideas you have available to you, more ideas will come because the future self, the higher self, will continue to give you more information and more insight. You see? So have faith in you. Have faith in your team. Okay? You know, we can get into these different things, and I will over time, you know, because I talk about consciousness and ego all the time. Subconscious mind is something that we often hear about. We don't often hear about it in comparison to consciousness. But I want you to recognize that these things are the totality of your human experience here. And so you have to learn how to utilize what these are and how they work. And you have to make sure that you learn how to communicate between all of them. You know, some people will break down even more. You know, there can be more things, you know, but these are the main ones that you want to focus on. And these will allow you don't even have to focus on the unconscious mind, because some people will say that the unconscious and the subconscious are the same things. So you can lessen the amount of things, you know, you don't have to feel overwhelmed. You can just say, listen, you know, I'm going to focus on overall 3 things, really. Consciousness is the overall umbrella. You know, your conscious mind is, like I said before, the thing that analyzes. It's the thing that observes in the moment, right? The conscious mind is the thing that is absolutely in the now. It is constantly in the now, looking, observing in the now. And then it is taking that information, right? Whatever the conclusion is of that moment, and then it is storing it in your subconscious mind. And the more emotional of a trigger that the conscious mind is experiencing, the more it is likely to store significantly in your subconscious mind as a reaction, as a reflex, things of that nature, as a pattern, as a belief system, as a way of life, right? Until, like I said before, you reprogram it. You know, the ego is essentially just the tether, right, to the physical world. Okay. The ego's intention really, ironically, is to protect you. But protection can sometimes go overboard. It's like the overprotective parent who doesn't let their kid go do this or go do that or be independent at all because it's concerned about it getting hurt. That's how the ego functions when it comes to you exploring new ideas, trying new things, right? You have to be able to manage the ego. So we'll get more into that in later videos if you like. Leave a comment below if you want me to observe or, talk about any of these things. If you want me to get more into detail about each one of these, I will. But essentially what I want you to understand is the how of manifestation isn't something to worry about, isn't something to concern yourself with. It is something to allow your teammate, right, consciousness, your higher self, to take care of. You simply learn to listen to the echoes of the messages of the future self as it sends these things back, these clues back to you, or these insights or advice back to you of like, okay, what do I need to do next? And then you may have an idea. You may be inspired with an idea. You're like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. And that is going to then lead you ultimately to the path of absolute fulfillment, joy, and happiness. So I thank you so much for listening. I recommend you pick up the Future Self Frequency right now. You can go to futureselffrequency.com. You can purchase the Deluxe Transformation Edition right here. You can also purchase the My Future Self Frequency journal. Okay. This is an amazing journal. It has helped me out immensely. And I'm the one who wrote it, right? I'm the one who designed it. So it's amazing even for people who teach and design these things. It is still a lesson to be learned and some evolution and some evolving and expansion that always happens because that's who we are. We are infinite beings. And so I want you to understand who you are, and I want you to recognize that your future self isn't some fantasy. It is the reality that you are meant to actually experience and live out. So thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com as well if you want to subscribe to my daily newsletter. When you do, you will also get the first chapter of the Future Self Frequency Transformation Edition absolutely free. So thanks again. Peace and abundance always.